So the Las Vegas Raiders drafted Jackson Powers Johnson to basically play guard, and it never made sense to me why they ultimately made that decision. Obviously, they paid Andre James before they ended up drafting Jackson Powers Johnson, so it only made sense to continue to keep Andre James at center and move Powers Johnson to guard. But we saw this guy playing center for the Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you guys did not know this, Powers Johnson came in for Andre James, who ended up missing probably the last, drive or two for the Raiders. And Powers Johnson looked phenomenal. Powers Johnson, to me, is a top 5 center already in the NFL if he continues to play this position. That's projecting a little bit, but you guys can watch the tape here in a second with me. We'll get into all of the plays that he actually ended up playing. But the guy's smart. He's physical. He's tough, but he's smart. And that's the thing that I think people don't recognize with Powers Johnson. This guy processes the game faster than most people. This guy sees things faster than most people. This guy helped the Raiders' offensive line basically keep Gardner Minshew clean pretty much for the entire 14 snaps that he played. And most of those plays were passes. But Powers Johnson, to me, should have been the Raiders starting center coming out. And after watching this 14 snaps that he actually played, there's no reason why he should not be the starting center for the rest of the season and pretty much for the rest of his career. I think there's a real chance Jackson Powers Johnson, if he plays center the rest of this season, is going to be regarded as a top 5 center. In fact, I think most people, if he plays center for the rest of the season, will actually say by the end of this season, Powers Johnson's the second best center in the NFL. The guy's tape is really, really impressive, and I'm not trying to overhype this guy at all. Powers Johnson, to me, is a center, and he should be a center, right? Obviously, he went to guard, and he's had losing snaps at guard, right? It's a new position for him. But center is his old position, right? Center is the position he was ranked as one of the best players coming out of the 2024 NFL Draft. In fact, Powers Johnson was the second highest center that I've ever graded, right? And I've graded a lot of centers coming out. Guys like Tyler Linderbaum, guys like Creed Humphrey, right? Landon Dickerson, although he ended up playing guard for the Eagles, he was a center at Alabama when he was coming out. He was a really, really highly ranked center as well for me. But Powers Johnson was probably at this point the best center prospect I've seen. Creed Humphrey's probably the only guy that might be a little bit higher than Powers Johnson. But what I'm trying to say is Powers Johnson, to me, is regarded as one of the best center prospects I've ever seen. I think that would translate into the NFL, and I think we saw it translate in the 14 snaps he played against the Chiefs. And I'm excited to get into it. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. So Andre James obviously ended up getting hurt on this play here. Again, I'm not 100% sure if he really got hurt. I know it was listed that he had an ankle injury. But there's also a chance that the Raiders have recognized that Andre James isn't that good of a player. And him getting blown up on that play right there could ultimately be one of the reasons why the Raiders have realized that let's make the switch and let's see if that helps this offensive line. It's possible, right? Again, I'm not saying an injury didn't happen. We'll see what ends up happening as we go forward. But let's get right into the tape. I'm excited for this one. Alrighty, guys, let's go ahead and just get right into the tape. Powers Johnson, to me, is one of the best centers that I've watched on tape this season. I watch a lot of other teams. Obviously, I have a football scout channel that I do mostly offensive line and defensive line content on. And one of the things I do on that channel is I watch other offensive lines. Now, I'm telling you guys right now, Powers Johnson is a top 5 center. And yes, that's projecting a little bit, but you can already see the flashes on tape. This play is a great example of it. Now, keep in mind, it's the first play that Powers Johnson has come into the game. Now, one of the things we got to recognize is the offensive line protection is going to be called. And the slide here is going to be to the left. Now, you do have Brock Bowers in the backfield, but he obviously is going to end up motioning out of there. And what that means is you have a true 5-man protection, and the slide, again, is towards the left. So I want you guys to recognize the importance of the fact that the slide's to the left. If you guys keep an eye on Powers Johnson, as soon as Powers Johnson snaps the football, he gets out of his stance, he's going to start going towards the left over here. And notice how the Chiefs are going to end up bringing a blitz to the right. Now, the slide's towards the left, the Chiefs blitz on the right side of the formation. Look at how quickly Powers Johnson recognizes this, and look at how he's going to end up stepping over here to the right. Him and Jordan Meredith are going to end up swapping the defensive line. You can see that defensive tackle ends up going into Powers Johnson. He picks it up. Meredith ends up coming and picking up the blitzing linebacker as well. This play right here, with other centers in the NFL, lead to quarterbacks getting hit. Powers Johnson's so fast, he's so quick, great footwork, that he allows Meredith to pass it off, and he's able to exchange it. And the Raiders pick up 7 yards on 1st and 10. These little things right here, right? The little details when you're a center like this and you're able to do these things right here lead to an offensive line being good. Because when your center can't do basic stuff like this, then that means the guards can't pass off. That means Nick Bolton, number 32 here, the linebacker, this guy comes free. if you have a center that's not able to process this quickly, if it's a guy that can't overtake this. Bolton, number 32 here, the linebacker, this guy comes free if you have a center that's not able to process this quickly, if it's a guy that can't overtake this. And then never underestimate the fact that Powers Johnson isn't getting pushed back at all within this. He's going to not only take this defensive lineman on, but he's going to shut it down. Gardner Minshew was all day to step up within the pocket on this. To me, that's a phenomenal rep. But the thing is there's a lot of these snaps on tape with a guy like Powers Johnson. And of course, we're going to watch every single one of these snaps. Now, this play here is going to end up being the fumble. I'll just show it to you guys really quickly. Powers Johnson does a pretty good job on the guy that he ultimately ends up blocking. There's the fumble. You see the defense lineman picks it up. Powers Johnson does a pretty good job with the guy that he's going to end up taking on. You will see that they're going to once again bring a blitz, and they're going to just bring too many guys. They're not going to be able to pick it up. They're also simulating pressure. What that means is the D end here is going to fake the rush. He's going to drop back in coverage, as you guys see there. And there's just not enough guys ultimately, right, to be able to pick this up. But Powers Johnson does a pretty good job, right? He's able to make contact here with the defensive tackle, and he anchors down and he shuts it down, right? So it's a good job right there by Powers Johnson on that one. And one of the things you're going to notice with the snaps that Powers Johnson plays in is the pocket's a lot cleaner. Keep in mind, we got backups in essentially two of the positions here. All right, you got a backup left guard in Cody White here, right? Obviously, Powers Johnson's starter at this point. And then even Dylan Parham's out, so you got Jordan Meredith. Although some people think Meredith might be a little bit better. It's debatable, right? I think Parham has definitely looked good at times as well. But you notice how much cleaner the pocket is, right? You recognize that there's not pressure coming the way we once saw. And keep in mind, the offensive line here, although there is a running back, the running back's not going to actually end up chipping. He's going to release right into his route. So to me, the offensive line looks a little bit better. And I think a big part of that is just because Jackson Powers Johnson's, he's one of the best centers in the NFL. And I know he hasn't proven that, but I'm telling you guys, if you guys put the tape on of other guys, right, you go look at Creed Humphrey as an example. A lot of what Creed Humphrey does is what Powers Johnson does. In fact, if you guys look at any people that cover the NFL draft, they will tell you that Jackson Powers Johnson was one of the best center prospects we had ever seen outside of Creed Humphrey. Right? Creed Humphrey was the other guy that people were really, really high on. You see guys like Powers Johnson doing things like this. Right? It's just little things, right? Little things to keep the pocket clean. He snaps the football. He checks the linebacker here. Is he blitzing? Is he dropping off? Or maybe that's a safety. And he's going to come over here. He's going to help the right guard. He's going to make sure to be physical. He's going to make sure to try setting the tone a little bit. And he's going to help keep the quarterback clean. And you see the quarterback's able to get the ball out. But once again, it's a clean pocket. All right, so to me, the Raiders had a little bit more success with the offensive line when Powers Johnson was in. Here's another one. Once again, you're going to see the Kansas City Chiefs end up bringing a blitz. Powers Johnson's going to pick it up. He's going to end up tossing the linebacker out of there. All right, that's a phenomenal job right there. And you're going to pick up a pretty nice gain. Now, this one does come back because of DJ Glaze. He's going to end up losing against Chris Jones. As expected, you do expect a guy like DJ Glaze to struggle a little bit against a guy like Chris Jones, or most people would. But Powers Johnson, right, again, really, really good rep here against Nick Bolton. You see that Bolton, he pushes some centers back, right, depending on who the center is. But you see Powers Johnson kind of tossing him out of there. And again, to me, the biggest improvement that I saw with this offensive line was the pocket, generally speaking, was a lot cleaner from the inside, right? There wasn't a lot of pressure right through the middle. Guys weren't being pushed into the quarterback. And maybe that'll change, if we go into next week. Maybe there's more pressure if Powers Johnson ends up getting the start. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders felt like Andre James just didn't really look that good. Because he didn't, right? He had that play in goal line, which he ended up getting blown back on. Some people think that's the play he got hurt on, but Andre James is not a good center, right? And I don't want to make a video talking negatively about any player, but Powers Johnson, man, look at this play here. I mean, this is a phenomenal play. This is awareness. And keep in mind, 5-man protection up front. It's a big deal when you only have 5 guys pass protecting as opposed to a tight end and running back kind of chipping. But notice how Jordan Meredith's going to be a little late out of his stance, right? He's going to essentially give Powers Johnson the hand. He's going to let him know we're ready to go. The ball's going to get snapped, and Meredith's going to be slow out of his stance. And notice how the defensive tackle here, the 3 technique, is going to end up actually beating Meredith. He's going to get around him. To me, this is a hit on the quarterback if Powers Johnson is not in there. Notice what Powers Johnson does on this one. Look at that right there. That right there is not something that's typical of most NFL centers, right? A guy loses and you're willing to get out of your gap. You're willing to get out of where you're positioned to be able to help a guy who ends up getting beat. To me, that's a phenomenal job right there by Paris Johnson. And this is part of what makes this guy such a great football player. And the crazy thing with Paris Johnson is he's physical, he's tough, he's strong. And I think as he gets more snaps at center, if he does end up starting for the Raiders as we go forward, I think the Raiders' offensive line will be a lot better. And I think the Raiders would actually have a top 5 center in the NFL. I would say as soon as within 2 weeks, the Raiders will have a top 5 center. Because the guy does a great job being able to keep the quarterback clean. He does a great job keeping the pocket clean. Never underestimate how important it is for a quarterback to be able to step up in the pocket. Here's a good example of a play in which Cody Whitehair is going to basically get his ass kicked. Whitehair's going to set up in a wide stance. He's going to get out of there. He's going to set up kind of wide. And you're going to see the defense tackle jumps to the inside. And Whitehair starts to get pushed back a little bit. Right? You see Whitehair kind of, as he makes contact, get pushed back 1, 2, 3 steps until Paris Johnson kind of comes in there. But Paris Johnson stops this defensive tackle from being able to push the pocket, being able to collapse it from the inside. And this is what Paris Johnson brings. Plus, recognize this. Look at all the movement here by the linebacker and safety pre-snap. Look at these guys essentially going from, outside the box, into the box, on the line of scrimmage, moving around. Paris Johnson processes it, and then he's able to help Cody Whitehair a little bit as well. Here's another one where he's going to process it. Obviously, one of the hardest things to do is pick up the blitz if you're an NFL offensive line, especially with guys that move the way the Kansas City Chiefs do. These guys are bringing guys in the A gaps. These guys are bringing corners off the edge. These guys blitz like crazy, right? And it's a hard thing to pick up. But Paris Johnson does a pretty good job trying to pick it up. He's going to first and foremost check the left side, which is going to be number 20. 20 drops off, and then he's going to end up picking up the guy that Meredith is in a one-on-one with. And he's trying to release Meredith to Bolton. It's not going to work perfectly. Again, it's a hard thing to do. But he does do a good job being able to process it fast enough where if Meredith is at least able to slightly turn and get to Bolton a little bit. Now, of course, Amir Abdullah does most of the work. But again, to me, it's the mindset that this guy has. And again, I said he plays physical. He definitely plays physical. Check out this play here where he's going to go up against the 3 technique on this one. And look at him straight up just hip toss this defensive lineman. I mean, to me, that is physical football. You'll see Paris Johnson here lined up at center. He's going to obviously take on the defensive tackle here. And then look at this. Look at him straight up toss this guy. And then jump right on top of him, being physical, showing him that physicality, that physical mindset that the Las Vegas Raiders want to play with. If Antonio Pierce is serious about running the football, if he's serious about, we want to set the tone and we want to kind of impose our will and be violent and physical, Paris Johnson should be the starting center for the Raiders. This guy's such a great football player. People don't recognize it, right? Paris Johnson was the best center prospect I had personally watched since Creed Humphrey. And I say NFL draft analysts have said that. I'm probably the guy that said that. There's probably some other guys that would agree with me as well, but I'm definitely one of the guys that have said that. And you can see the tape, right? The tape does not lie. This guy looks more comfortable at center than he does at guard. And again, center, guard are 2 different positions. Generally speaking, I would say that guard's a little bit easier than center because you don't have to snap the football. But we also got to recognize some guys prefer to play center because of the fact that they have good bend, they have good movement. It's easier in terms of you don't oftentimes have guys lined up right over you. So here's a great example of what I mean. So you got 4 guys on the defensive line. You look at the left guard here. If he has a guy directly to his outside shoulder, he has to take this guy on. As opposed to Paris Johnson has no one, right? He's essentially going to slide right or slide left. And I think with a guy like Paris Johnson, he's also a rookie. He's very young, right? He only stayed 3 years in college. He came out right after 3 years. So for him, it actually might end up being easier because he's only going to get stronger as he gets older, right? He's only going to get stronger as he continues his NFL career. So guard maybe is a little bit harder for a guy like Paris Johnson right now. But honestly, he looks a lot better at center. I think the Raiders should definitely make that move back to center for a guy like Paris Johnson. The guy looks really, really good. And I'm excited to see what this guy continues to do as we go forward. If you guys ask me, Paris Johnson has so much upside. The guy's going to be such a great football player. And I think it'd be the smart thing to do for the Raiders to just stick with this guy. I think it'd be the smart thing to do to make Paris Johnson the future at the center position for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I know we've already given Andre James a contract. I think what the Raiders should consider doing is try trading this guy. And, the cap hits right now for Andre James, we are technically locked into him for this year and even next year. But I would be willing to eat some of that dead cap if a team's willing to give us like a 4th round pick. Again, we would have to eat the cap in order to get a 4th round pick for Andre James. But even if a team doesn't want to give up that much and they're willing to give us a 7th round pick and they're willing to eat some of those cap hits, the Raiders should just make it happen. I think at this point, there's no reason why we should stick with Andre James. I can show you guys 40 snaps right now of Andre James is getting blown up, right? Literally, I could show that to you guys within, it would take me 20 minutes to put that together. And the thing with Andre James is he's never really developed. And there's just not a lot of upside with this guy. And I think what Andre James has done for the Raiders is, he's getting blown up consistently. So we're not having success running the ball consistently because Andre James is oftentimes getting blown up. Now, he's not the only guy, right? There's snaps where Jordan Meredith, Dylan Parham, Paris Johnson, the tight ends, there's snaps these guys are losing too. But Andre James is the consistent guy that's losing every single week. To me, you just can't have that, right? And the difference of losing, getting pushed back versus actually getting a push of 1, 2, 3 yards, which is something Paris Johnson would actually bring to the Raiders, it's a huge difference, right? It'll make such a big difference for the Raiders. I think it just makes sense, but I want to know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing. We are obviously covering the Raiders on this channel, and I'm excited for what this team has, man. I really, really do like Jackson Paris Johnson. I think he has so much upside. Let me know what you guys think. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.